Full and uncut versions available on Patreon. Check in the description below.
Greetings once again, Pokemaniacs. Duuz-Diz-Din back again with more of the Pokemon Adventures manga, where previously an asteroid is headed towards the world of Pokemon, and Ruby has gone off on his own to do some research into how to stop it. He encounters Zinnia, who has been after the Devon Corporation because her people have their own processes on how to stop the meteorite and doesn't want them getting in the way. In fact, it was her salamence that had actually injured Ruby, giving him his prominent scar all those years ago in one of her attempts to stop the Devon Corporation when they had captured Rayquaza. All the while, Sapphire and Emerald continue to hone their skills with Steven Stone in the mastery of Mega Evolution. But Ruby has told Emerald and Steven to keep Sapphire unaware of the meteorite. Meanwhile, Amber and Blaze, former members of Team Aqua and Magma respectively, have encountered each other, Blaze having been tracking the red and blue orbs ever since they had come into the possession of Giovanni, keeping an eye out should they ever return to the Hoenn region, and return they have. So they've decided to team up. Amber mostly because he wishes to see his friends again, while Blaze is after power. Meanwhile, the Absol that foretells disaster has once again appeared to Gabby and Ty, and with their last conversation with Ruby being a little strange, they've decided to go off with it to see what's happening. Meanwhile, Sapphire and Emerald have traveled with the others to see Mauville to train up a little bit, meeting with the Plusle and Minun that Ruby and Sapphire had met previously. Later that night, Ultima and Mr. Briny talk about the absorber that Mr. Stone has created and how it may prove very dangerous to Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald's Pokemon. Speaking of Emerald, a mysterious ring appears behind him as he goes to take a walk. Yeah, his usual thing. Stranger and stranger things are happening in the Hoenn region. Is it all a precursor to the asteroid's imminent arrival and destruction of the planet? Or is there more to it than that? Join me as I find out, won't you? Alright, and diving into the last volume that I have, despite the fact that this storyline has 2 more volumes, the one isn't really available just yet, and won't be till the end of this year, at least in English, and the last one won't be available even in Japan until the end of this year. So, well, just gotta go with what we got. So, Pokemon Adventures Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire Volume 2. An interesting cover with Sapphire and Emerald overlooking what looks to be a battle between Steven and Zinnia? Primal Groudon and the asteroid. Okay, that's a cool little look for the who's who situation. The Devon Corporation, Steven, Mr. Briny, Drake Ultima, President Joseph Stone, the Draconic people in opposition with Zinnia, and people we haven't met, Renza, Jinga, and Tomatoma. And then Team Aqua, Team Magma, Blaze Amber, mysterious beings moving the orbs, who could they be? And then the Pokedex holders, Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald. Cool. Alright, we start with adventure number 7. Hoopa distorts. Stop that, Hoopa. Don't do that. Don't distort things. Life's already distorted as is. Alright, we pick up with Emerald taking a leap, but he notices the magic ring behind him floating in space. He freaks out a little bit, trying to see. I really don't want to see his, pants down or anything like that, but I know they always kind of shy away from the joy of what is the human body processes. Alright, just miss out on little droplets flying off of him. Emerald says, whoa, and then something appears on top of the ring, grabbing it. Emerald says, hand? And as he reaches out to it, the hand grabs the ring and then smacks him upside the head with it. Dang. Emerald runs away saying, is that a Pokemon? Well, in that case, Emerald grabs his gear while Sapphire's still asleep, grabbing his little pellet or dirt launcher, bringing out Sceptile, and the two rush out to deal with whatever this is. They notice it behind them, with the silhouette of Hoopa coming towards them down the hall. Menacingly, Emerald says, "Where are you from? Where do you live?" Hoopa doesn't respond. I mean, I'd say that, did you really expect it to talk to you, but we've had talking Pokemon before. Emerald says, "Fine, I'll just use this mud then." And as he loads his mud launcher, he fires it off, saying, "Calm down." And as he forms the little surrounding area around Hoopa, Steven rushes in saying, "What's that sound?" As he spies what Emerald is up to, he asks, "What are you fighting, Emerald?" Emerald says, "Steven, that's what I'd like to know. I've never seen anything that moves like this with a shadow like that." "Oh, what the heck?" Hoopa jumps out of the ring, or the diamond that Emerald put around it, and starts attacking, smashing into Sceptile, I think? It's kind of hard to make out in that scene. Emerald says, "Whoa, it hasn't calmed down at all. Is this a Pokemon that lives in Sea Malville?" Steven says, "I'll help. Your Sceptile has an important role to play, so I can't let it tire itself out in this battle." So Steven brings out his Metagross. It's anything but gross. He then activates his keystone, chanting, "The light of my keystone and the light of the Metagrossite merge. Go, Mega Evolution!" And Metagross Mega evolves into Mega Metagross. He commands Mega Metagross to use Metal Claw, but Hoopa dodges it aptly. Emerald says, "Ooh, I've never seen this one before either. So this is your Pokemon's Mega Evolution, Steven?" Steven says, "Yeah." Emerald then questions, "And that thing on your collar is," Steven says, "my Mega Stick Pin?" Huh, everybody does something different. Emerald then says, "It dodged all of Mega Metagross's attacks at close range. I've never seen a Pokemon move so agilely before either, and it's too fast. I'll try again. This time the mud is from here." The capsule reads, "Faraway Island." Alright? Once again, Emerald uses his mud launcher, forming the diamond around Hoopa. Emerald says, "Did it work?" But after a moment, Hoopa grins, much to Emerald's shock, and it teleports? I'm not really sure. Emerald says, "Nope, it disappeared." Unbeknownst to Emerald and Steven, they're being watched by Mr. Stone. "Mr. Stone, why you acting so cagey lately, man? You're so cool before." Later, outside, Steven tells Emerald, "New Pokemon, wonderful. Report this to my father, but he'll probably just tell us to not let it distract us from the meteor and the Draconid people. A trainer capable of calming Pokemon down with clumps of mud. I'd heard of that, but never. How does it work?" Emerald says, "I'll tell you. You can sense where a Pokemon comes from and where it lives the moment I see it. I use this E-shooter to surround them with the mud of their homeland, or their new home." Steven questions, "Do the familiar smells calm them down?" Emerald says, "Exactly, but I can't figure out where that Pokemon we just met is from. That shouldn't matter, though, because I used mud from Faraway Island the second time, but I still couldn't calm it down." Steven questions, "I don't understand." Emerald tells him, "Faraway Island is where the Pokemon Mew lives. Mew is the ancestor of all Pokemon, so that means this mud is basically from the homeland of every Pokemon." I guess that's how that works, maybe. Steven says, "Oh, I see." Emerald tells him, "One more thing, Steven. Are you sure we were just fighting one Pokemon?" Huh? Steven questions, "What do you mean?" Emerald says, "Inside that ring, I could see the eyes of another Pokemon." What? So it was more than just Hoopa. What? I wonder what it is. I don't know many Pokemon. What Pokemon has freaky eyes like that? You then cut back over to the Sky Pillar, where we see Ruby mounting Latios, saying, "All right, let's go, Latios." Latios questions, "Already?" Ruby tells him, I've taken a good look at all 49 floors." 49 floors? Jeebus. "And I took pictures of that huge mural, too." "Oh, huge mural. Did we see that before?" Latios questions, "Where to?" Ruby tells him, "We need to find Steven so we can tell him what happened last night." Latios says, "Hop on," but Ruby's kind of already on him. But Ruby does have Latios Mega Evolve. As they make their way up and out of the tower, Ruby spies those weird chains that... didn't his dad chain himself up or something? Or he had to do something with those. It's been a while since, so I don't really remember. Ruby spies them and thinks that chain and circular pattern. To meet Rayquaza at the top of the tower, you need one person to pull the chain and another to stand in the middle of the circle pattern and head for the top of the tower. Right. The one who goes to the top of the tower has to be a child. 4 years ago, my father and Wally went to the top, where Rayquaza was sleeping. Are we gonna actually see Wally in this? Like, it's weird that he's just gone from the story, period. Zinnia said she was the official lore keeper destined to protect the planet. She also told me this tower was built by her ancestors. 9 years ago, she was on a mission to save their dragon-type Pokemon deity. In other words, Rayquaza. Does that mean the way to protect this planet that Zinnia's people have been passing down for generations is connected with Rayquaza in some way? I would think so. Latios then asks, what are you thinking about, Ruby? Is it that girl Zinnia? Ruby asks, can you tell? Latios says, I have a question. Since this was the first time you met Zinnia, how did you know her name? That's what I've been wondering. Ruby says, well, I told you about the night Steven told us about the meteor and the threats from the Draconid people, right? And how I agreed to help him if he promised not to tell Sapphire about the meteor. After that, I talked with Emerald all through the night. A flashback to them talking, sitting out on a grassy knoll of sorts. Ruby kind of being Emerald's version of Todd. I wonder if I'll see Todd in this. Probably not. Emerald says, I had no idea this was so serious. Ruby says, it sure is. Emerald asks, hey Ruby, I get that Sapphire is special to you, but what about everyone else you care about? Are you going to tell them and ask for help? Ruby's narration says, that surprised me. How could I ever tell anyone, let alone ask for advice? I'd have to tell so many people. But, okay, it's everybody in their updated designs. Let me guess, that's all we get to see of, like, Norman, Ruby's mom, Wallace, Professor Birch, and Wally. Ruby gets up saying, no way. Emerald says, I guess. I wouldn't want to scare the cobbler or Crystal either. See, Crystal appears in her previous design, though. Kinda. And she's just not in the clothes. If we can't stop it from happening, why make everyone miserable beforehand? Ruby's narration says, people do things like that to protect the people they care about. Talk about being a softie, huh? Ruby then seems to realize something, remembering Courtney. Mostly them legs. Oh, man. I need to stop. Ruby thinks Courtney. Maybe Courtney can handle the knowledge. I wonder where she is. Ruby then reaches into his bag and brings out the lighter horn thingy, memory thing. His narration says, I had kept myself from looking at this until now, except for the information about my father that Courtney gathered at Moss Deep City. But what about Courtney's older memories? Oh, would it really go back that far? Ruby then asks Emerald, could you take a look at this with me? Emerald says, at what? Ruby ignites the lighter, and as he goes through the memories, his narration says, Courtney at Rusturf Tunnel, Courtney at the Desert Ruins, Courtney at Slateport City, Courtney at the abandoned ship. Team Magma members share their memories through this lighter. I looked into Courtney's memories and they see a figure, facing off against Courtney in the memories. Emerald says, what? They're fighting each other? In the memory, a flashback, and in a memory inside of a flashback. Courtney says, color me surprised. I never expected to find a spy among us. Are you from Team Aqua? What are you doing here? The figure, who is very obviously Zinnia, says, I won't need this disguise anymore now that you've discovered me. Zinnia tosses off the Team Magma outfit right into Courtney's face. Zinnia says, phew, this feels so much better. That uniform really stank. Her whisper comes racing over. Zinnia says, oh, Aster, happy to see me back to my usual self? You're so cute. She hugs her whisper, but Courtney, now pissed, has her Ninetales use flamethrower. But Zinnia brings out her salamence and flies above the flames. For some reason, Zinnia calls out, my name is Zinnia. I am a descendant of the Draconid people. Courtney questions, Draconid people? You're not from Team Aqua? Zinnia says, you know the Sky Pillar. It was my ancestors who built it. I was working undercover in Team Magma because Well, let's just say it was because it's my duty to save this planet. I've done what I came here for, so I'll be leaving now. Catch you later, she says, flying off. Man, that shot of Courtney, it's just... it leaves me questioning, is she wearing underwear? But she's brought aloft by her Talo, or Swello, I should say. I don't know why I said Talo, Swello. Like, oh, fake fan alert, he doesn't even know the name. As Courtney says, she's gonna be sorry. But someone says, let her go, Courtney. It's a very drunk Maxie. As Courtney says, but boss. As Maxie downs some booze and wipes his chin, he says, that spy provided us with a lot of valuable information. A Pokémon called Groudon, where it sleeps, how to awaken it, the orb we need to control it. We confirmed everything we wanted to know. Who cares what she came here for? All that matters is getting a huge lead on Archie. Courtney says, if that's what you think, boss, it's okay by me. And so the flashback ends. Latios saying, I see, so that's why. Ruby tells him, I saw Zinnia's salamence in Courtney's memory and felt the urge to meet her, but I'd rather not tell Steven about all of this. Latios questions, how come? Ruby says, well, think about it, Latios. If what she told me is true, that we and the Devon Corporation should back out of this and let Zinnia take care of the whole thing, that's what I'd have to tell him. Latios questions, are you serious, Ruby? Ruby shrugs, saying, yes, after all, the Draconid people have known about this media for 1,000 years, right? And they've been passing down their knowledge of how to prevent this crisis for 1,000 years. Latios says, but you and your father. Ruby says, it's true that I was a little annoyed by her at first, but that is that and this is this. What does it matter if the planet gets destroyed? On the other hand, if she is capable of protecting the planet from the media, and no matter how nasty, foul-mouthed, annoying, nitpicky, stubborn, and self-centered she is, we should trust her. Latios thinks to himself, are you really just a little annoyed? And he says, I get it now. See, and this is why Ruby's hanging out with Latios, because Latios wouldn't be putting up with half of his crap. Ruby says, the Devon Corporation views that letter from the Draconid people as some kind of threat. And Zinnia clearly said the Devon Corporation was her enemy. That it looks like they're both upset with each other. I don't know why, but it's a waste of time for them to fight. Latios says, you're wise, Ruby. Ruby says, the problem is whether I can explain it to both of them. Latios says, after all, she is a nasty, foul-mouthed, annoying, nitpicky, unyielding, stubborn, and self-centered. Ruby says, huh? Latios says nothing. That's the side of Latios that really brings into perspective the relationship with Latios. But Latios seems to sense something. It comes to a screeching halt, almost throwing Ruby. Ruby, grabbing onto Latios, says, what's wrong? But then he notices, 3 members of the Draconid people approaching them using Flygon. I don't know if I'm going to remember all these people's names. Ruby says, let's make way for them, Latios. But as they try to move out the way, they're suddenly surrounded. Ruby saying, I knew it. I had a hunch this would happen. Okay, let's figure out who's who. Alright, Renza, Jinga, and Tomatoma. Renza says, we saw you fly to the top of the sky pillar. Jinga questions, what were you doing up there? Tomatoma says, depending on your answer, we will decide whether or not to permit you to pass. And they bring out their Pokémon, a Mawile, a Slowpoke, or Slowbro. Yes, I think Slowbro. And a Sableye? Yeah, that's all of them. Oh, okay, and they go on the attack. Mid-air, no less. Not sure how that's all gonna work out. And next up is adventure number 8. Slowbro has an idea. Uh-oh. I hope it's a good idea. Well, then again, Ruby is facing off against the Slowbro. All 3 of the Draconid people's Pokemon, I think, fire off a beam, but Mega Latios manages to stop it in its tracks. Oh, what? Did they land on something? Huh. Well, dang. Ruby says, what? How are they standing in midair? That's amazing. Jenga says, answer us. What were you doing at the Sky Pillar? Ruby asks, who are you? Renza says, I am Renza. Jinga says, I am Jinga. And Tomatoma says, and I am Tomatoma. And we are the Draconid people. they all say, mega evolving their Pokemon, I believe. At least Slowbro. As Slowbro uses Yawn, Ruby says Latios. Latios says, I'm fine, but this is a surprise. They can mega evolve. Ruby says, right, they must be Zinnia's friends. But Jenga grows angry. Renzo says, no. Jenga says, we are not Zinnia's friends. Tomotomo says, never. Ruby questions, huh? Yeah, I'm kind of surprised by that. Two, what did Zinnia do? They have their Slowbro use Focus Blast, which hits Latios pretty hard. Jenga says, I knew it. This guy knows Zinnia. Tomotomo questions, what were you talking to her about? What are you scheming together? Ruby says, hey, what are you talking about? And how can these Pokemon move through the air like that? Latios says, contrails. Ruby says, contrails? Latios explains, cloud trails left behind whenever dragon-type Pokemon like us fly. Trails of moisture that can be detected by the human eye. How are they standing on that then? Renzo says, that's right, but the draconic people who have been living symbiotically with dragon-type Pokemon for eons can see them. Tomotomo says, and our Pokemon can stand on locations where the contrails have crossed each other. That feels like a stretch. Like, I don't know if that makes as much sense as you make it out to be. Ruby says, that's enough. Tomotomo says, what? Ruby says, and why did you say Zinnia isn't your friend? You're the Draconid people, aren't you? You attacked me because you thought I was a member of the Devon Corporation, didn't you? Jenga says, what? Tomotomo says, huh? Renzo says, hold it, Jenga, Tomotomo. They huddle together and whisper amongst themselves, leaving Ruby kind of clutching what's going on. Jenga says, let's try this again, kid. Tomotomo asks, what were you speaking about with Zinnia? Ruby says, well, she told me that the Draconid people have known what's about to happen for 1,000 years, and that you also know of a way to prevent it. Plus, she told me she's the official law keeper, and the Devon Corporation is your enemy. Renzo says, official law keeper, huh? Jenga says, Zinnia. Ruby asks, is something wrong? Jenga says, no. Renzo says, that was our village's decision, but Tomotomo says, we haven't accepted it. She hasn't been accepted. Renzo says, to us, our only official law keeper is Aster. Ruby says, Aster? You mean Whismer is the law keeper? Right? Oh, right. Because Aster is the one that the Whismer is named after. I forgot about that. I'm like, wait, the Whismer is the lore keeper? And this is, no, I mean, Tinker says, it's all so confusing, and this is all, Tomotomo says, Zinnia's fault. They explain. Anyhow, the official lore keeper of our tribe used to be Aster, a true genius with special powers. But now, Tomotomo says, Aster is gone. So when we looked for a successor to take on Aster's duty, Zinnia was nominated. But Zinnia has no special powers. She doesn't have what it takes. Tenga says, Zinnia was chosen to be the lore keeper, with the opposition of many people. Ruby asks, so you're saying Zinnia doesn't have the power to save this planet? They say, exactly. Renza then questions, by the way, did you happen to notice if Zinnia had a scroll on her? Ruby takes a moment and says, no, not that I know of. Renza says, I see. Tomotomo then notices something shining up in the sky and calls out to Ruby, look out, move left. Ruby then notices something and dodges out of the way with Latios as something comes hurtling past them. What the heck? The meteor's not supposed to arrive yet. It crashes into the water, and the heat of its re-entry leaves a lot of smoke and pressure coming out. Ruby questions, what was that? They say, a meteorite, of course. It's like a vanguard. There are many small meteorites that will reach the planet before the huge meteor at their center. Oh, okay, I guess that makes sense. I think I just read it wrong. Jinga says, this means the main meteor is getting closer. Ruby takes a moment, and Renzo then says, it just won't do. Not Zinnia. Zinnia has never gotten anywhere with the legendary Pokemon Rayquaza. We wouldn't have any objections to her as lore keeper if Rayquaza had allowed her to ride it and soar through the sky with her. Ruby, hearing that, says, what? And then he thinks back to Oh yeah, when he was riding atop Rayquaza during the battle between Kyogre and Groudon. Tomotomo then looks up saying, "Another one!" Jenga says, "Sorry about that, kid." Hansa says, "Sorry for detaining you." Tomotomo says, "So long." As they all dodge the meteors headed their way. Ruby takes a moment saying, "Soar through the sky with..." And Latios says, "This isn't good. We better leave this place now." And Latios goes to take off, but Ruby's so lost in thought that he ends up falling off. Latios tries to go for it, saying, "Ruby!" And though he manages to catch Ruby by the wrist, one of the meteors hits Latios in the back, and they go plummeting into the waters below. We then cut back to 6 months ago. Sapphire saying, "What?" Ruby says, "Look, they've offered me a job as an advisor to redesign the Pokemon contest into the Pokemon contest spectaculars. Ideas have been flowing out of my head. I'll need to organize my ideas and write them all down. I know. I'll create samples of the contest uniforms. Ideas have been flowing out of my head. I'll need to organize my ideas and write them all down. I know. I'll create samples of the contest uniforms." And then Ruby's mom, Caroline, says, "Welcome, Sapphire." With Sapphire saying, "I think I'll leave." As she races out, Caroline says, "Didn't you come here to talk about the plans for your Pokemon habitat research?" Sapphire says, "See ya." Caroline says, "Ruby, may I talk to you?" Ruby says, "What is it, Mom?" Went for him to say, "Oops." Then again, I couldn't help it. I was so happy and excited that I totally forgot about the promise. I've already told them I'll accept the advisor job. Sapphire knows how passionate I am about Pokemon contests. I'm sure she'll understand. Caroline thinks to herself, "This is hopeless. I have to tell him. In that case, why don't you at least make up for it? This might be nice." Ruby says, "An astronomy show?" Caroline says, "That's right. I went with your father 12 years ago. It was so beautiful, fantastic, and romantic, but it's super popular. Will you have a difficult time getting the tickets? It may sell out the moment reservation starts. If you want to call and reserve a ticket, you'll have to hurry. They're about to open." Ruby says, "The call won't go through." Caroline says, "Don't give up. Keep redialing." His mom's always in his corner. Cut back to reality. Ruby wakes up going, "Ow, ow, ow. Where am I? Achoo! Oh, my clothes are all muddy. A change of clothes. I didn't bring a change of clothes." And then sees all of his Pokemon laid out saying, "Oh, Kiki, Nana, Fifi, Fofo. We're all okay." Pokemon including his Mightyena. Ruby says, "Huh? Where's Latios?" Latios says, "I'm right here." Oh, Diancie? Huh, okay. Ruby says, "Hey, what's that Pokemon?" No, it's "Who's that Pokemon?" Latios says, "A Pokemon who lives on this island. It watched over us after we fell into the sea and got washed ashore." Oh, is this where Diancie ended up after everything that happened previously? Oh no, this would be beforehand. Huh. Ruby thinks to himself, It'd be beautiful and cute." He goes over to Diancie, grabbing his hand, saying, "I bet everyone would be thrilled if I brought you to a Pokemon contest. Hey, how would you like to enter the cuteness category with me?" He then pauses, letting Diancie go. Then he slumps down in the cave walls. Latios questioning, "What's wrong?" Ruby says, "Oh, seeing such a beautiful Pokemon made me see, how can I put it?" Latios says, "See what?" Ruby says, "The meteor. That meteorite that fell. I just remembered it, and all of a sudden things started to get real. A huge meteor is heading for our planet. It's so painful to imagine a future that will never be. What have I been doing for the past 2 days? If the world is going to end, maybe I'd be better off not knowing, too, instead of spending my precious last moments in despair. If everyone and every Pokemon is going to be instantly, painlessly vaporized, what difference does it make to know what comes next? That's why I don't want to tell anyone about it, and that's why I decided to act alone. It's because I'm scared I won't be able to keep it a secret. I shall notice the fear in my eyes," says, thinking of Sapphire. "I haven't changed at all in the last 4 years. I still pretend not to care about anything, still hide my true feelings. But now that's all over." He stands up, tears in his eyes, saying, "I can say it. I care about my life. There are so many things I still want to do." He goes over to Diancie saying, "Look how beautiful and cute this Pokemon is. It's like a jewel. Oh, how I want to hear the audience gasp in awe when they see this Pokemon. And that's not all. There might be a way to include Mega Evolution in Pokemon contests. I bet the audience would love that. And there's more. I haven't had a chance to introduce cosplay Pikachu to everyone yet, and the matching contest costumes for the other trainers. I designed those costumes so Sapphire and I could wear them together. He doubles over in despair, saying, I helped her with the Pokemon distribution survey, and now it's her turn to help me with the Pokemon contest. But the world had come to an end. Diancie looks to Latios, and Latios questions Ruby. Ruby breathes out, tears still in his eyes. He looks to Latios with determination and a smile, saying, Feel better now. Latios says, Are you all right? As Ruby puts on his backpack, he says, Uh-huh. Now, what should I do? We've learned some new information, so we'll have to adapt our plan. Latios says, In that case, let's see how Em and the others are doing using site sharing. Ruby questions, You used that back at the Battle Frontier, didn't you? Latios says, Right. I had my sister Latias go after Em. Sister. Huh. Did we know they were siblings? Or is that always how they work? Huh. We can share the images we're looking at and project them. Ruby says, Is Latias in Dewford Town? Latias says, No, it's... And as he uses site sharing, Ruby sees everyone else. Sapphire, Emerald, Mr. Stone, Drake, Mr. Briny, Ultima, all watching Sceptile and Blaziken on the absorbers. Ruby says, Where is that? Mr. Stone tells Sapphire and Emerald, Okay, Mega Evolve. And they do just that, activating their keystone. The Pokemon Mega Evolve. Mr. Stone says, Now, have your Pokemon prepared to use the ultimate moves, and not actually use them. Have them concentrate their life force strongly enough to be able to use their ultimate moves if they want to. Alright, and their Pokemon start to kind of double over in pain, or are they concentrating? Sapphire says, What's that rumbling sound? Emerald says the entire C. Mauville facility is shaking. Steven goes over to the control panel. Yeah, this is definitely the same setup as the absorber for over in Kalos. Steven says, Start the absorber. Activate the dimensional shifter. Begin absorption. Mr. Stone says, Infuse the device with the life force of Mega Blaziken and Mega Sceptile. And as the device activate, Ultima, Sapphire, Emerald all look on in shock. Ultima saying, What the? Latias looks away in fear. And so the site is disconnected. Ruby turns to Latios saying, What's going on? Latios says Latias couldn't bear to watch anymore. Ruby questions, What are they doing? A serious look takes over his face and says, Let's go. I have to talk to Steven right now. Wait, is Diancie coming along too? Wait, what? Ruby and Diancie hop onto Latios' back. As he says, Yes, we're going to have to get the Devon Corporation to back off and let Zinnia take care of everything. Ruby says, No, I've changed my mind about that. Latios questions, What? Ruby says, Remember what those Draconoid people said? It's the one Rayquaza allows to ride it. The one Rayquaza will soar through the sky with. Was worthy of being the lore keeper. In that case, the only one who can stop the meteor isn't Zinnia or the Devon Corporation. It's me. Exactly, because you've done it before. 7 days remaining until the meteor makes landfall. Okay, so next up is adventure number 9. Gudra spits. Ew. Gudra spits, doesn't swallow. I shouldn't have said that. Sorry. Alright. We pick up with Ruby flying across the ocean on the back of Mega Latios. Droplets fall onto Latios' back, and as Latios looks back, he sees Ruby shedding tears. Latios questions this, and as Ruby wipes the tears away from his eyes, he says, Oh, huh? Oh, I thought I was done crying. Latios takes a moment. Okay, I had to think about how the speech bubble looked. It's not Latios telepathically talking. It's Latios thinking to himself, Humans are fascinating. They change so drastically in such a short time. This boy seems the same, yet he is quite different. He's matured since I met him at the Battle Frontier. You actually got to know him. Never actually thought we'd have this kind of pairing. That's why he was able to Mega Evolve me. I'm honored to have bonded with this boy, Ruby, in this era. This era? Huh. That last part kind of threw me a little bit. What does that mean, this era? I wonder. Latios then says, So, you wish me to fly to see Mauville, correct? Ruby says, uh-huh. First, I need to apologize to Sapphire. Then I need to thank Emerald for helping me. I'm thinking of asking them to join me in the search for Rayquaza. We don't have a lot of time, and we've only got a few leads. Latios questions, leads? Ruby tells him, 4 that I can think of. First, the Sky Pillar where it used to live 4 years ago, but we've already searched there. Second, the Moss Deep Space Center. My father's notes on Rayquaza are kept there. Smart. Third, the village of the Draconids. I don't know where it is, but I have a hunch we'll be able to narrow down its location using the Pokemon distribution data Sapphire and I collected. And last but not least, there's the Pokemon Association Research Lab, where Rayquaza escaped because of me. Ruby suddenly clutches his chest. Latios questions this, but Ruby simply says, I'm fine. Fine. Are you though? What's going on with you, man? Felt like we went from something mental to physical. And there was effects from commanding Rayquaza. Will that happen again, I wonder? As we cut from Ruby flying over the sea on Latios, we cut away to a bridge? Oh, okay. See Mauville. That's what it is. I couldn't tell from the position that we were looking at it from. We suddenly see the crest on Gardevoir's chest begin to shine. Oh, I didn't notice that at first, but also got Marshtomp in that panel there. Or Swampert. I am really calling the Pokemon I say are like all the wrong names lately. Sapphire sees this, thinking to herself, Ravash's chest is shining. Is it picking up his emotions? But which ones? Suddenly, Sapphire's attention is grabbed as we see Plusle and Minun clutching at her legs. As she goes to comfort them, she tells Emerald, I understand why they're scared. I'm scared too. After seeing that, as we see Mega Sceptile and Mega Blaziken pretty much suffering from being used by the Absorber. Like, my god. Oh, okay. Okay. Sapphire calls out, Hey, Steven, what gives? I thought we were gonna do some Pokemon battle training. But look at Chick. How am I supposed to fight with Chick like this? And what's with this dimensional shifter thingy anyway? Steven, caught off guard, says, well, only for him to be interrupted by the arrival of Zinnia. Zinnia, as well as several members of Team Aqua and Team Magma. How did this happen? Standing on a balcony above them, she says, they'll never give you a clear answer. They just use people and Pokemon to get what they want. That's the Devon Corporation for you. Sapphire questions, what? Who are you? Zinnia says, who am I? That's difficult. That's a difficult question. I'm nobody. Or everybody. Just kidding. Enough with the soul searching. You get a little too playful there, kiddo. She confidently announces, my name is Zinnia. I'm a Draconid. Much to the shock of Mr. Stone, Steven, and Emerald. As Emerald says, Zinnia? Sapphire, this is the girl from Team Magma who helped them awaken Groudon 4 years ago. Sapphire says, what? Zinnia says, you know your stuff, shorty. But I wasn't only in Team Magma. I was in Team Aqua too, to witness the awakening of Kyogre. And we see her in the outfit with braids and stuff. Nice disguise. It's a little bit more elaborate than just putting on the Team Magma hood. Steven says, the Draconid people, so you're the one who sent this threatening letter. Zinnia says, threatening? Ha! You only took it that way because you've got something to hide. Oh, it was an outright threatening letter. What are you talking about, kid? He then says, anyhow, you weren't able to prevent the discharging of the infinity energy, so don't complain that I didn't warn you. She then brings out her Goodra and has it use Sludge Wave on Steven and his father. She then tells the members of Team Aqua and Magma, okay, everyone, we're going to put a halt to Devon's diabolical scheme by force. Okay, so we have become climatology. What's the word I'm looking for? Climate activists? I don't know why that word's so hard for me to get out. But sure enough, both teams unleash their Pokemon. Meanwhile, Drake says they're from Team Aqua and Team Magma, as both he, Ultima, and Mr. Briny send out their Pokemon. In the ensuing fight, Zinnia tells everyone, I told them about the danger our planet was facing when I infiltrated their organizations. They put their differences aside to save it from the Devon Corporation. Meanwhile, I keep wanting to call him Mr. Devon. Mr. Stone says, stop them. If they destroy the absorber now, all the life force we drained from Mega Blaziken and Mega Sceptile will be wasted. But as she makes her way over to the device, Zinnia says, destroy the absorber? No. What I want to destroy is the dimensional shifter. Okay. I still don't fully understand what that thing is. But Sapphire seems shocked by this revelation. Whisper makes its way over to the dimensional shifter and pulls it out of the device. Zinnia says, nice, Aster. But suddenly, in comes Plusle and Minun, grabbing the device and kicking away Whismer. As Sapphire makes their way over to them, she takes the dimensional shifter, mean-mugging Zinnia. Zinnia tells her, you don't know what that is, do you? Sapphire says, no, but I want to know. Well, what is it? And what are we doing? Zinnia says, all right then, I'll tell you. Mr. Stone then calls out, Sapphire, don't listen to her. But Zinnia tells her, the dimensional shifter is a machine that creates a warp hole. Sapphire questions, warp hole? Zinnia tells her, that's right. They want to use it to create a huge hole in outer space to move the huge meteor that's about to crash into our planet to another dimension. Which, that sounds weird, but, once you get to... We already done dimensional shifting and stuff like that. I was about to say once you get to Sun and Moon, but, it's not as common. It's common, but not as common. Before Sun and Moon, it's a lot less common. Once you hit Sun and Moon, go into other dimensions, it's just kind of like another Tuesday sometimes. Like, Lola's full of dimensional portals and stuff. But Sapphire questions, Media? Crash? Zinnia says, what? Didn't you know? You had no idea why you were cooperating with the Devon Corporation? Sapphire then looks to everyone else, and Drake, Mr. Bronny, Ultima, Steven, Mr. Stone, they all look away. Sapphire then turns saying, Emerald, did you know about this? Emerald doesn't really respond, while Sapphire says, how about Ruby? Zinnia then says, Ruby? That cocky kid? Oh, he knew. Sapphire turns thinking, she's met Ruby? Why wasn't I told? Why do I always have to be the last one to know what's going on? Where did he meet her? Why is he going behind my back again? Why didn't the others tell me? Why? Always. See, that's what I'm saying. Of course it would come right before Ruby had the chance to tell her. Of course. What? Hey, this is familiar. Yeah, it happened in the last story arc with Y. Sapphire tries to get, where do you meet Ruby? But for some reason her words are muffled. She grabs the throat thing, trying to say, I can't speak. There's something important I gotta ask her. But suddenly Zinnia grabs her wrist. But with her extreme physicality, Sapphire is able to jump away from Zinnia to a great distance. Zinnia then calls out to the two team grunts, go after her and destroy that thing. And so they go dashing after Sapphire, who scampers away. Zinnia says, I was able to stop the energy flowing into it. That should be good enough. Also, I got a hold of that girl's keystone. Next style. And then she eyes Steven's keystone as well. Meanwhile, Sapphire is hiding out on one of the pipes high above the grunts, who call out, huh? Where'd she go? Oh, this is the cover of the volume. Emerald then makes his way under a door near where Sapphire is, whispering, Sapphire, over here! But as he reaches out for her, Sapphire pulls away her arm, saying, don't touch me. You lied to me, too, didn't you? Still in her weird, muffled voice. While Emerald whispers, huh? What? I'm sorry I didn't tell you. I'm sure Ruby will explain everything when he gets back. Unbeknownst to them, Hoopa is watching them from above. Okay, what is with Hoopa? Emerald whispers, at any rate, we need to find a safe place to hide right away. You can yell at me all you want after that. But they're spotted by an Aqua grunt, saying, there she is! Emerald brings out his Dusclops and Sudowoodo. Get in here, Dusclops! Saying, Sapphire, run! But unbeknownst to Emerald, Sapphire finds herself falling through one of Hoopa's rings. Meanwhile, Zinnia on her Gudra is battling against Steven on his Mega Metagross. Mr. Stone calls out to Zinnia, why are you doing this? Why do you want to stand in our way when you know about the crisis? The dimensional shifter is the pinnacle of our technology. We've devoted all our resources to its creation. It is the hope of mankind. Zinnia says, the hope of mankind? What a cruel joke. Don't pretend you don't know how devastating the outcome was when this technology was used thousands of years ago. You guys never change. You always think you know best, and you won't listen to anyone else, and you try to squelch any dissenting opinions. Okay, So, is there a relation to the ultimate weapon? Because if there is, I fully understand why Zinnia is against this. Because, no. With what happened previously in the past with this kind of technology, this should never be used. Period. People will die. Pokemon will die. But then again, it's one of those things of, does it really matter if it saves the whole of humanity in the process? I do understand Zinnia's apprehension to it all. Because it is fairly inhumane. With everything had we not seen what happened in the X and Y story arc, it would be harder to side with how Zinnia's opinion about all this, but it was a lot of what we saw. It was kind of messed up. It's like, this is wrong. Zinnia says, so I'm just doing what you do, giving you a taste of your own medicine. But as Zinnia's Gudra pushes back Steven's Mega Metagross, Swampert watches on, very worried, right up until it sees something jetting through the sky. And he knows. With a big old smile, Swampert goes racing off to where Emerald previously went to go relieve himself, and Swampert prepares itself. Meanwhile, it seems as though Gudra is getting the upper hand on Metagross, right up until something grabs Gudra's mouth as it's unleashing some flames and tosses Gudra and Zinnia into a wall. Metagross, I think, goes to attack, but then Steven realizes, saying, Ruby? Oh, as it's Mega Swampert who stops Mega Metagross's attack with his big old chunky arms. I gotta say, Mega Swampert looking good. As Ruby says, please stop this pointless battle. Steven questions, huh? Zinnia says, pointless? As Mr. Stone, Ultima, Mr. Briny, and Drake watch on. But Zinnia cries out, out of my way, little boy, as Gudra attacks Mega Swampert. Ruby then thinks to himself, I knew she wouldn't listen to me. I have to get Sapphire and Emerald safely away from the Devon Corporation. But as he looks and sees Emerald, he then thinks, Sapphire? Where'd she go? Oh, okay. We then cut over to... Are they near Sutopolis? Well, Gabby and Ty are somewhere with Absol as they see a meteor crash down into the water, causing a massive wave that soaks all three of them. Gabby says, did you get that, Ty? Ty says, oh yeah, I got plenty of it. Gabby questions, how many have we seen since we left Slateport City with Absol? Ty looks at his phone saying, see near Evergrande City, Route 132 near Pacific Town, Route 127 offshore of Lily Cove City on Route 124, Route 130, and here on Route 131. Gabby says, 6 places, huh? The meteorites are falling in a pattern, as if they're surrounding Sutopolis City. Okay, so it is Sutopolis. Why is it always Sutopolis? Thankfully, all the meteors have fallen into the sea, so there haven't been any casualties or damage to the city. Gabby then asks, Absol, is this the disaster you meant to warn us about? Absol, I can't really tell what Absol's really doing. He just kind of looks away and puts his head down. Gabby says, looks like we'll have to continue this investigation on our own. They head back to TV Mallville, and as they access a terminal, Ty says, what should we do with this footage? Gabby says, they're coming from outer space, so the best place to follow up would be Moss Deep Space Center. Ty says, right. Oh my god, really? This guy is still here? Wait, no, this would have been beforehand. So, wait, how is he? This is the dude who ambushed, Alexa. How is he involved here? Okay, I'm so curious, because at first I'm just like, oh no, not this guy again. But then I'm just like, wait, this is a completely different region. And this would be before all that happened in the previous story arc. Oh man, throw me off a lot. Okay, so Gabby tells Ty, but if we're going to broadcast these videos, we need to do more research first to put this meteor shower into perspective. Until then, we'd better keep this information on the down low to avoid making the citizens of the Hoenn region panic. Let's go to Moss Deep City next. But first, I could really use a little nap. But as they head out, we have the Lumious Press editor-in-chief show up, saying, oh my, what have we here? This footage is bound to snag good ratings. So he used to be a member of Hoenn TV previously. Jeez. What a thing to have connect the two regions and stories. This chuckle. I shouldn't say that. Alright, and the final chapter of this video, it's adventure number 10, Swamper Smash! But we pick up with Sapphire in some dark area. She gropes and kind of shoves her feet around, thinking to herself, where am I? It's cramped and dark here. I don't think I sunk to the bottom of Sea Marville. It smells and sounds different. And then hears mumbling as she puts her ear up against the wall? She thinks to herself, people talking, footsteps. They're coming closer. 4 people. She hears the voices saying, you've completed your system check on the rocket, right? We can have a little celebration after we launch the rocket. Yes, all we have to do now is wait for the device to arrive. Don't be silly. Well, actually, it might be fun. Is she at Moss Deep Space Center? Are they waiting for the dimensional shifter? Which I think she still has in her possession. Sapphire thinks, rocket, launch. That means this must be... Oh, hey! It's Professor Cosmo and his assistants. We'll place the dimensional shifter in the rocket and launch it into the trajectory of the fallen meteor. This is the only way to save the planet from certain destruction. The fate of our planet lies in the hands of Moss Deep Space Center. The happy assistant says, the launching of the rocket will be a literal blast, and so will the launch party. The angry assistant says, isn't that right, Professor Cosmo? Cosmo says, absolutely. Where is she, though? Don't tell me she's in the rocket. Sapphire thinks to herself, Moss Deep Space Center? What am I doing here? Worse, what am I doing inside their rocket, right? Come to think of it, I seem to remember a Pokemon sneaking up on me back there. And then I seem to remember going through some kind of hoop thingy. Did that Pokemon transport me here? The serious assistant says, when will the dimensional shifter arrive? Professor Cosmo says, Mr. Stone said he'll be fueling the device with Pokemon Life Force today. Sapphire brings out the dimensional shifter, thinking, he's talking about this thing. The happy assistant says, what is infinite energy anyway? And what does the dimensional shifter do exactly? Oh, thank you for asking that so we can get some exposition. The angry assistant says, You're only just asking me that now? The serious assistant says, you worry me. Professor Cosmo says, it is Professor Cosmo, right? Yeah, okay. Says, alright, let's go over it once more. Every person in Pokemon has a life force, a combination of physical and spiritual energy. This life force is the power that gives us the will to live. The machine that drains that power and converts it into energy we can use is called the Absorber. The Absorber converts life force into infinite energy. Infinite energy is extremely versatile. We can use it to launch this rocket with the dimensional shifter inside. When activated, it will create a warp hole in outer space. The happy assistant says, a warp hole is something that teleports you instantly from one place to another, right? So we're going to teleport the meteor someplace else? But where? Professor Cosmo says, I don't know. The dimensional shifter will create 2 warp holes, an entrance and an exit. They'll be connected by a transmission cable. The only thing we know for sure is that the meteor will go elsewhere, thereby preventing the destruction of our planet. Anyway, we must launch the rocket as soon as possible, because we're running out of time. Sapphire listens deliberately to all this, and then thinks to herself, it's exactly like she said. Remembering Zinnia's words, where she said, what? Didn't you know? You had no idea why you were cooperating with the Devon Corporation? Sapphire thinks to herself, everyone, except me, knew all about it already. They told me Ruby asked them to keep it a secret from me, but a meteor is about to hit our planet and destroy it. She starts smacking her head, thinking, all I had on my mind was spending all that time with Ruby. I got carried away trying to share his goals. Stupid me, stupid me, stupid me. She then remembers her last interaction with Ruby, where he handed over the clothes, saying, this will look fabulous on you. Sapphire's narration says, I hadn't seen him for a while. Sapphire blushes and backs away, saying, what? This is out of the blue. While Emerald's just watching. Emerald's always just kind of there. Ruby says, I made this outfit for you. Go ahead and try it on. Sapphire says, oh, okay, I'll go and change. Ruby says, hold on a sec. I've got something I need to take care of, so I'll be away for a little while. Okay? Could you take care of Rara and Mumu for me? And train them too if you have time. Sapphire asks, where are you going? Ruby says, I'll be back soon, I promise. Sapphire begins to pout, while Ruby says, oh, one more thing. After you're done training, would you like to go see this show together? As he brings out the tickets to the Littlenoids astronomy show? Sapphire is flabbergasted, saying, ain't tickets to this show super hard to get? Ruby simply says, uh-huh. If you're not interested, Sapphire grabs him, saying, I'll go. I'll definitely go. Ruby says, say hello to Steven for me, will you? I'm going to borrow Lori, by the way. Sapphire continues to struggle to speak, thinking, I still can't speak. Through a gravelly voice, she says, Curly, this must be some kind of punishment. Being jealous because you didn't evolve into the same Pokemon as Ruby. I'm sorry, but her, what was the Pokemon's name again? Gallade. There we go. Her Gallade shakes his head. Sapphire hoarsely says, a meteor is about to crash into the world in who knows how many days. She then thinks to herself, is this the reason you didn't tell me? Because you didn't want me to feel the way I'm feeling now? But how about you? How are you feeling when you invited me to see the show with you? Determination fills Sapphire's eyes as she thinks, I'm going to do what I have to help save the world too. And there's one thing I can do right now. Meanwhile, outside with Professor Cosmo, a figure lands behind him. He and the assistants panic. The serious one shrieks. The angry one says, who is it? While the happy-go-lucky one says, could it be a thug who sent those threatening letters to the Devon Corporation? The Sapphire steps forward. Cosmo says, yeah. But the serious assistant says, Professor, look, the dimensional shifter. Sapphire hands it over to Cosmo. And as he looks at it, he says, the infinite energy tank is full. Meanwhile, back at Sea Mauville, Ruby commands Mega Swampert to use Hammer Arm on Goodra, knocking both it and Zinnia back. And Zinnia's getting knocked around all over the place. Zinnia grits her teeth, saying, you. While Ultima says, he's on fire. Meanwhile, Ruby thinks to himself, it's no use. Even if I try to stop them by force, I still won't be able to resolve the conflict between Zinnia and the Devon Corporation. The best strategy would be to escape Sea Mauville with Sapphire and Emerald. But where is Sapphire? Meanwhile, Zinnia says, you might want to pay attention to our battle, as she has Goodra fire off a attack of acid or splatter or whatever, only for Mr. Briny to tell his Pelipper? Yeah, Pelipper, Pico to use Soak, washing away the attack. Ruby says, thank you, Mr. Briny. I mean, Captain. Briny says, long time no see, my boy. Meanwhile, Steven and his Mega Metagross are fighting off the Grunt's Pokemon, only for Mega Metagross to falter. Drake says, doesn't seem to be at its best. Did you drain its life force too? Steven says, I can't hide anything from you, can I? But I did it months ago. The dimensional shifter wasn't the only thing we needed the infinite energy for. We had to use it to build the rocket as well. Drake says, months ago? Haven't you healed it since then? Steven says, of course I did. Potions, berries, I even took it to the Pokemon Center. But it never fully recovered. It still can't use some of the moves it used to... No. Dang. So it's still affecting it even months later. Yeah, no wonder Zinnia's just like, no, this thing is inhumane. Because it really does do some permanent damage to the Pokemon. Steven says it's continuing to recover though, but slowly. At least it's finally at the point where it can Mega Evolve again. Drake says, draining their life force is that harmful, huh? But suddenly Zinnia says, what? She disappeared? that sapphire girl vanished along with the dimensional shifter. Ruby says, what? Emerald. Emerald says it's true. And behind Emerald is Hoopa, who seems to like putting Emerald's hair into the ring. Emerald says, it was probably thanks to this Pokemon. Ruby says, a wild Pokemon? Emerald says, I fought it last night actually. It was probably just playing with me, but it's been following me around ever since. Check out its hoop. It showed up the moment Sapphire disappeared. Maybe she got sucked through its hoop. Ruby reaches out, saying, you mean Sapphire is inside that? But as Ruby reaches out, Hoopa backs away, pulling Emerald's hair with it. Zinnia says, that's hilarious. The machine that creates a portal to an unknown location has been sucked through a portal that connects to an unknown location. Talk about irony. Okay, everybody, the threads of fate have led us in the right direction. Time to go. Nice work, everyone. And the grunts cheer. Little does she know, it ended up right where it needed to be. Which, why did Hoopa do that? To move the plot along? Yes, but, Zinnia then says, I almost forgot. I still got to get what I came here for. Oh, what the heck? Steven tries to back away, but suddenly he finds himself trapped in a whole bunch of mud. Or sludge? Drake calls out, Steven! But he's also stuck in the mud. Zinnia says, the sludge from Sludge Wave has hardened. You must have used the slime. Oh no, it's Steven saying that. You must have used the slime excreted from Gudra's body. Zinnia says, bingo. Sharp thinking, Hoenn League champ. Or is it X-champ? Grab the keystone from him, Gudra. But as Gudra reaches out, Ruby steps in, blocking it with his forearm. Much to Zinnia's anger, she says, oops, I forgot you could still move. Ruby says, I arrived here after the others. Zinnia says, and what's the meaning of this? Ruby says, it's just what it looks like. If you want keystones, they don't have to be Steven's, right? He takes off his keystone bracelet, jumps up, which throws Gudra off balance. He lands on Gudra's back right behind Zinnia. Again with the compromising positions. Like, what is this pose? Ruby, for some reason, brings his arms underneath Zinnia's armpits. Just, I don't know, man. There's something weird about that pose. Ruby says, here, take my mega bracelet and emeralds. Wait, emeralds too? Zinnia questions, why are you doing this? Ruby says, like I said, I want to stop this pointless battle. Zinnia looks to Emerald saying, are you okay with this too, Shorty? Emerald simply says, yep. Zinnia grins. Gudra uses his tail, I think, to grab onto Emerald. Zinnia just takes the bracelets. She recalls Gudra, causing Ruby to fall to the floor, and brings out Salamence and takes off. Swampert and Metagross de-mega evolve, and Ruby watches them take off. Ruby then looks to Swampert and Gardevoir saying, Moo, you look so different. You were so powerful just now. And Rara, you become so beautiful. I wish I'd gone to record your evolution. I'm so grateful to Sapphire for training you. Meanwhile, Mr. Briny, his teleporter helps him out of the hardened sludge as he says, but my boy, are you sure about this bargain you just made? Ruby says, I needed to do something that would have a big enough impact to get Zinnia to drop her guard. And it worked. I got what I was after. He says, holding up a scroll. Mr. Brownie questions, scroll? Ruby remembers the words of, Renza, saying, by the way, did Zinnia have a scroll on her? Ruby says, on the way here, I heard that she had one, and it's much more important to me at the moment than what I gave her. Come on, let's go, Emerald. I'm really sorry I involved you in all these lies, by the way. Emerald says, don't worry about it. With his hair still being sucked into Hoopa's ring, he says, will you cut that out? Ruby says, that Pokemon really seems to like you a lot. Emerald says, in that case, take us to Sapphire, would you? Where did you send her? Hoopa questions this, like, how do you not know where you sent her? Ruby says, I don't think it knows. Emerald says, that's okay, it's Sapphire, I'm sure she'll be fine. Steven comes rushing over saying, Ruby, where are you going? Ruby says, to locations in Hoenn that have connection to Dragon-type Pokemon. Steven questions, how come? But Drake approaches saying, hold on, Steven. I'm Drake, a member of the Elite Four. Ruby says, I know. Yeah, I guess they never actually properly got introduced. Weird. Drake says, then I'm sure you know what my area of expertise is. Ruby says, Dragon-type Pokemon. Drake says, I'll take you to Meteor Falls. Okay, we see that, Drake Emerald and Ruby, as well as Hoopa, greet Latios and Latias, but they're being observed. As Amber says, "I've got sight of it, Blaze. The mythical Pokemon with the hoop. There it is." As he zooms in on Hoopa. Wait, Amber saying that. "Looks to me like it has a close relationship with one of the dex holders." Blaze says, "I see. At least it seems the winds are starting to blow in our favor now. The mythical ring that can call out legendary Pokemon. We're gonna get our hands on." Can call out legendary Pokemon? And I thought that was just for the anime. Can it really do that? Just summon any mythical or legendary Pokemon? That's kind of extreme. Like, my god. Especially in a world where these Pokemon are actually really powerful? Meanwhile, we cut to Gabby and Ty, who seem to be eating, and they're in a location with a lot of people and a television. Gabby says, "Hey, what's this all about, Ty?" Ty says, "Beats me," as food is falling out of his mouth. As the person announcing on the TV showing the footage that Gabby and Ty got says, "Once again, this is an emergency announcement. This image was captured by the Hoenn TV news team. Numerous meteorites are plunging into the sea around Sootopolis City. The dangerous meteor shower began early this morning. 6 meteors have already been accounted for around Sootopolis City." The people in the newsroom say, "Wow. Whoever got this scoop is going to win the department chief's award." Sure. Which unit was it? Meanwhile, Gabby says to Ty, "Someone stole our footage while we were resting. This is going to be big trouble." Meanwhile, the future editor-in-chief thinks to himself, "Ha, now I can finally leave this backwater TV station." That's how he does it. Man, it's interesting to know that he ascended to Lumos editor-in-chief through something like this. What a jerk. And the announcement says, Musty Space Center did not respond to our request for comment. Amateur astronomers and several professionals believe these meteors could be the harbinger of the arrival of a much larger meteor. If that is the case, this whole region could be wiped off the face of the planet. And we see that this is being watched by the Pokemon fan club chairman. Oh, right, this is Captain Stern and Doc. Wally, who's been essentially forgotten just completely. Mr. Trick, or Trickmaster. Oh yeah, the swimmer, Jack, yeah. And Todd, okay. And we have the narration. That day, the ominous news spread quickly throughout the Hoenn region. The citizenry began to panic. 6 days left until the meteor makes landfall. Oh boy. Alright, so the news is getting out there because of a very unfortunately familiar face, of course. It's interesting to have seen how everything came together for Ruby to go on his quest. But, I don't know. The quest seems a little superfluous. It's mostly just so he could have been introduced to Zinnia and a lot of the draconic people, or Draconids people, whatever. Emerald is mostly feeling like an aside character in a lot of these situations, so I'm waiting to see if he actually gets a little bit more involvement. And Sapphire has every right to feel a little bit dubious about the fact that so many people were keeping secrets from her. But man, the absorber and the effects of the absorber, they're making it very clear, like, no, using this absorber it's very much a last resort kind of situation, but even then it's just like, ugh, that's a lot of negatives. But fate of the planet and all that. So Ruby is on a quest to find Rayquaza. But if Hoopa can summon legendary Pokemon, can it also summon Rayquaza? I didn't think Amber and Blaze would be going after it, though. I thought they were honing in on something else. I wonder how that all adds up. Then I wonder if Steven and Mr. Stone are going to be completely pushed to the side, all things considered. But Zinnia in command of both Team Aqua and Magma. Grunts that she managed to get to her side. That makes her a little bit more dangerous than I initially thought. If it was just her by herself, it's like, okay, she can only do so much. But having a group of both at her beck and call, that's a little bit more controlling power. But Sapphire was able to get the dimensional shifter to the rocket from Professor Cosmo. So I guess we'll see if that all works out. I kind of doubt it, because, Rayquaza, but we'll see. But now the news is out there, and people are starting to, the fear and panic are slowly going to start to take over. See how that all goes. But Ruby gave up his Mega Bracelet, so Sapphire, Ruby, and Emerald don't have their bracelets. Dang. No Mega Evolution for them, I guess. Which is actually kind of interesting. Giving up that power increase. But Ruby took the scroll. I wonder if there's... What about the scroll is so important? Maybe a location or something you need in order to bring about Rayquaza? Guess we'll just have to wait and see. But all in all, good few chapters. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Also remember to like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed the ride. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, I've been Duuz-Diz-Din, and I hope to see you in the next one. So then, take care. Bye-bye.